what could be happening in the nervous mind of a parent going through the situation and feeling like they have to impose certain things and they're not open to listen to the kid's need at that moment. How would you explain that on a close to scientific level with the relationship with their nervous mind?
For sure. So again, it depends from one person to the next because everybody's nervous system, even when you're in the quote unquote stress response state, there's different categories within that. Like we often think of just fight or flight, but there's 5 primary stress states.
I was going to say, wait a second, what do you mean stress response? Can you tell us the difference?
Can you explain the 5?
Yeah. Can you tell us what are the 5?
For sure. So I actually have a workshop that I teach about this, but to go like on a very summarized version of it, when we think about the stress response states, we think often those fight or flight, right? Like I'm stressed out. We often don't think that anger is a stress response state, but it is. It's literally, so stress response is like your body observes something within the environment that it thinks is a threat.
Okay.
That triggers your stress response state. Your nervous system goes into that fight or flight zone, what I like to also call fear response states. So you have that fight state, you have the flight, which is like avoidance, like procrastination is also a big thing when it comes to flight. Like you might literally feel like you want to go for a walk all of a sudden or go for a jog and you're like, why do I feel like I want to do anything but this thing? That's your flight response coming up. Then you've got the 3 others, which not a lot of people talk about, are Fawn, which is people pleasing. So for all the people pleasers that are out there, know that it's not like a personality flaw. It is a stress response state, people pleasing. And it's not something that we consciously choose. It's just something that we learned essentially to keep us safe. Often we learn it when we're very, very young. And then you've also got the freeze state and the shutdown states, which are very similar. But if you go and you look at nature, for example, you'll see all of the animals, they have these same stress response states hardwired into
Playing
them.
dead. That's one of them.
Exactly. So that would be the shutdown state.
Yeah.
So it's like or it could be freeze because they're very similar.
Right.
But
What's the difference between the 2 of them?
Yeah. So with the freeze state, your body is hoping that the predator won't notice you. So like, let's say that you have like a big lion that walks past the studio right now. Your body, when you think about that, like what happens in your body? When you imagine like, let's say there's a lion right here, just like tune in and what happens to your body?
Freeze.
You literally feel like frozen and you can't move, right? Like it's like the response is there, it's natural. And it's like, okay, hopefully they won't notice me.
Yeah.
The shutdown is, okay, they have noticed me. I'm screwed. I know I can't fight. I'm not strong enough to fight off a lion. I know I can't run away because clearly I'm not that fast. And like people pleasing
make
is not
myself invisible.
It's one step further. So the shutdown is literally your nervous system's like, I'm about to die. Like it is the worst case scenario and it's turning everything offline so that when that lion eats you, you will feel as least of the experience as possible and that you won't remember the experience. So your memory gets heavily impacted. And that's why a lot of people that experience like traumatic experiences can't remember the details of it because often they go into that shutdown state, which can feel even more traumatizing because you're like, I feel in my body that I went through this incredibly traumatic moment, but I can't remember the details. I can remember the edges of it. And so many people express that and I'm like, it is not your fault. There's nothing wrong with you. You're not broken, anything. It's literally your body that was trying to protect you from having to experience it to the full
It's like you
depth of its pain.
compartmentalized that experience almost.
It's not even compartmentalizing.
For you to forget it almost.
It's like
It's
basically
an instinct
you know
to keep you protected.
Yeah, it's like you know it's gonna be so freaking painful. You rather not remember.
Yeah.
You rather not register or document it.
You
so
just
you shut down.
you zone out. You block it out.
Disassociation. Yeah, you
block
leave
it out.
your body.
Disassociate. That's the word
Exactly.
I was looking for.
Yeah.
Do you feel that it's a mechanical reaction caused by the body, or would you say it's like almost another soul that take over your body and
It's a stress response.
It's a human
Yeah.
side.
Yeah.
Definitely the human.
Yeah,
Biological.
Exactly. It is biological. It's hardwired into our nervous systems. It's not something that we can ever consciously choose.
It's probably how our ancestors survived a long time
It is.
ago.
It's a survival mechanism. That's all that they are. It's all of those responses are there to keep us alive and keep us safe.
Let's say you're in a situation where you're catching someone in a moment doing an action. Like I'll give you an example. In a relationship, you could walk in a room, you catch your wife or your husband cheating, and then would you call that a freeze state or?
That might be a fight response.
I don't know about
Wait.
men
I'm
would
not,
fight.
I'm not talking about the.
Too, actually. I mean,
There's the jumping right away, but sometimes you see the one. It's like,
And you get frozen out of shock, right?
Yeah.
That's the initial response.
Potentially.
Yeah, for sure. And that could be 100% like the first response, and then it takes you a second to process, and then you go into that fight state, right?
Yeah.
Not always, but that's
Yeah.
very typical.
Yeah.
so you can jump into different states basically
Yes.
based
Yes.
on what you're going through.
Exactly. And the really cool thing, well, for me, it's cool, is that you can also be in what's called blended states. So,
Interesting.
Blended states.
yeah. So, for example, the Fawn state is technically a blended state. So, people pleasing. So, it's literally like somebody comes in and they're like, oh, do you want to go to like dinner at this place? You don't want to go.
Oh,
But you're like,
very.
oh, I don't want to disappoint them. Like that's your thing. Like
That's a stress response of saying
people
what
pleasing is a
yes,
stress response.
saying yes when you're not really into it.
Yep. That's a stress
Very
response.
ambivalent.
It's,
Yeah.
it's fun. Like it's trying to,
Exactly.
you still want to be liked.
You don't
So
want to be
that's why you
abandoned.
people please. You say yes to people
FOND,
please.
fawn.
And also,
FAWN. Yeah.
Fawn.
Yeah, that's a mixed state when you're in the people pleasing. So you're in the flight state of you're trying to avoid the threats, whatever that may look like. Maybe it's like the friend that you don't
Yeah,
want to
we,
disappoint.
We do that sometimes.
and then
Well, I noticed.
between
each
So
other.
Sorry, yes.
it's okay. And then you also have the free state. So you're in both states at the same time. So that's how it's a blended state
okay.
The freeze and the
and the flight state.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's where you are when you're in that fawn state. Yeah.
From your expertise working in the field, would you say there are some practical things that someone could do to either catch themselves in a state, and do we have any tools that can help us navigate through those stress responses that you could share with us and our viewers, basically?
Yeah, for sure. So each state needs something a little bit differently. So it's really interesting because like when you're in that flight or that fight state, you'll often feel like an energetic, I would say, charge, right? Like in
Okay.
your chest, like when you're angry, you feel heat in your chest. Like it's very repetitive sensations that you experience physically. So when I'm working with people, I often start at that very baseline of like, we need to start getting you more in touch with your body, because I find as a general whole, as a society today, especially in the Western world, we're very disconnected from our physical sensations
Yes.
and from our emotions as a general whole as well. But from our bodies, most of us are just like pushing through, trying to survive like from one day to the next, that our bodies are like the last thing on our lists, right? Like we've got an ache or a pain, like I don't care about it because like it's not my priority. I have to work or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
So the first thing that I always get people to do is really start practicing, literally just noticing what are the physical sensations that you're having come up in your body when you feel triggered. So once you
Changing.
start like observing that, then you can start being like, okay, and there's different physical sensations and there's also different thoughts that are associated with each state. And then once you start learning those different kind of signs, then you can be like, oh, okay, right now I'm in the fight state. My kind of specialty, I have the nutrition branch, which is where I work with a lot of people like to start. But then I also have like a background in polyvagal theory and the vagus nerve. So the vagus nerve is the 10th cranial nerve. That's the longest nerve in our body that helps us to switch out of that stress response state. And all of the exercises I teach people, they're physical exercises, super, super simple, that help to what's called tone the vagus nerve. So when you work, it's like essentially like when you go to the gym, you work out your muscles, you can do a kind of similar idea for your nervous system.
How does it look like?
There are so many different ones. But as an example, you have different, what I call like
One you
access
showed me.
points. Yes, exactly. So one of the exercises that I teach to pretty much everybody when I get started is like if you go to the very base, like back of your jawline where it ends just below your ear,
Okay.
and you take the skin there and you push it towards the center of your neck, so like back essentially, and you hold that with pressure while you're breathing in and out for about 30 seconds. you're essentially helping to directly stimulate the vagus nerve. And then you could do the same thing. So everybody calls it as one nerve, but it's technically two. So it's both sides of the neck that you can access that. You also have, if you measure from your wrist, so from here, like 3 fingers down, you have kind of 2 tendons. And if you put your thumb there in between the two and then go in a circular motion, you're also accessing one of the points where the vagus nerve is
grandmas used to
closer.
do to like kids, you know, too. I remember this from.
They have like pressure point bracelets for like motion sickness. And that's literally, it's touching the vagus nerve, which is connected to your digestive system. So then that's essentially how it's working. So it's really, really cool. And that's like a way that you can like stimulate the nerve. But then there are like, they're not complicated, but they're weird, so I won't do them right now. But there are those different exercises that you can use in the moment when you've learned what state you're in. So for the fight and the flight state, you need to do what's called down-regulating exercises. And then when you're in the fawn, freeze, or shutdown, you need up-regulating. So the main difference is like when you're in that fight or flight, you're up here already, right? The energy is super
It's like
high,
someone
super
just
intense.
shot, you know, a bunch of
Adrenaline in your body, right?
Yeah.
You're just like, I gotta do something. You wanna take action.
Yeah.
So that's the down regulating is we're downshifting. We're putting on the brake a little bit. We're helping our bodies to come down from that level of intensity. We don't wanna stop ourselves from feeling our emotions. And that's, I think, a lot of people, what they confuse like is, I don't wanna feel this emotion anymore. How can I shut it off? Versus how can I just dial down the intensity level, sit with it, still be present with it, and feel safe within the emotion without trying to escape from myself and my own experience.
Making it more manageable, basically.
Exactly, yes. So that is the down-regulating exercises that would be for the flight and the fight response. And then the up-regulating is when you're in the fawn, freeze, and shutdown mode, your body is like preparing for death, right? Like when we said the shutdown, the worst case
Just, like,
scenario.
slap yourself. No, I'm
Yeah, it's like it gets harder and harder to move. You feel more and more tired. That's where we have burnout. And this is a big thing that a lot of people don't talk about is when you're in the shutdown state, it often gets diagnosed as depression. But it can be that you've been in the shutdown state for so long. And because when you're in the shutdown state, your thoughts become very, very, very dark.
Yeah.
And it's you literally are preparing for death.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
And so when you start learning about it from a nervous system perspective, you're like, oh my God, it's not a personality flaw. It's like my nervous system is just in need of support. And I'm like, I wish more people knew this. And I wish I had access to that info back then.